Okay, welcome everybody to another edition of Truth or Skepticism. Hello, Mr. Radigan. How art thou?
Nice to be seeing you. Nice to be seeing you. Although, you can't trust anybody out there these days. So maybe it's nice to see you, or maybe I'm just saying that.
And why would you just be saying that?
I mean,
that could hurt you could hurt my feelings.
No, but I mean, I just know that the topic of this week's discussion is conspiracy theories. And I would say that the essential foundation of all conspiracy theories is things may not be what they appear.
So you want me to question? So
I don't
am I to question every single thing? I mean, do I now have to question our friendship?
If you have to question, even. I mean, you have to start with the eclipse yesterday, and you have to question: was that an eclipse, or was that evidence that the entire existence of humanity is nothing more than a simulation, and that was just a shade that was put over the LED light that lights the game?
Ooh, I hadn't thought of that. That would make a lot more sense, because if we did that, I have to think that the eclipse was good for the economy. So if we could do that, we can have an eclipse like every week.
I mean, upstate New York, where I'm from, I think it was probably the largest economic event ever, like larger than the 1980 Olympics. Hotel rooms in Saranac Lake were going for $1,500 a night. And I mean, and I believe every small town between Quebec and, the Mexican border was making a lot of money. And so, yeah, if they put the shade over the LED light of the simulation on a more regular basis, I do believe that it would be very beneficial to the economy.
So are you suggesting to me that I'm supposed to accept that as, is that what we mean by conspiracy theories? Or
no, I mean, I think that, in talking to Josh, who offered this topic, I believe his suggestion was that conspiracy theories are more widespread today, more credible than ever due to, whatever technological enhancements that create the appearance of credibility, and as such represent a larger liability than they ever have. That conspiracy theories are more prevalent and more dangerous than they have ever been.
And do you believe that? Because you can go back to all the way back to the kind of like the Salem witch hunts and the Kennedy assassination, and throughout my entire lifetime, there's been, Michael Jordan gambling things. I mean, I could just go through and just probably list hundreds of crazy conspiracy theories throughout my life that have nothing to do with what's happening, post-pandemic.
Sure.
So are you suggesting that?
Oh no, I guess what I'm suggesting is, well, I mean, I think first we have to understand what is a conspiracy theory, because the phrase conspiracy theory typically is used to suggest that something is not true. That it's used in a dismissive manner to say this is not true, right? That this thing that you think is true is not true. It's just a conspiracy theory. That it is a evidence of a loosely organized mind,
sure,
gone run amok.
Right. So I'm asking you, do you think that conspiracy theories are more prevalent in 2024 than they were in 2014 or 2004 or 1994?
No, but I think that many things that have been referred to as conspiracy theories have been proven to be true, or more. In other words, I think that the idea that a conspiracy theory, the use of the word conspiracy theory is a very popular among those who are actually doing the thing that's being dismissed as a conspiracy theory, as a way to avoid investigation. The Kennedy assassination being the most obvious one, because I would say it's a conspiracy theory that there was only one shooter. That the logical thing with Kennedy is obviously that there was more than one shooter. And so I guess the first question, before you get into what is a conspiracy theory, I guess is my question.
I don't know. That's why, I always thought I I didn't realize that a conspiracy theory could actually turn out to be true. I was
Well,
hoping
yeah, of course, because a conspiracy theory was always posited as something, as a way to say something is false.
right. So I guess I'm trying to figure out how to relate the topic of conspiracy theories to financial markets and to and to opportunity.
Well, I mean, the only way you would do it would be that markets are affected by people believing things that are not true. Would
Can
be
you give
would be
me
the,
can
would be the
can you
simple
give me an
sort of
example?
interpretation.
Can you give me an
Um,
example?
so if the market believes that vaccines that vaccines are that the vaccine doesn't work or whatever it is, that there's some opinion about the vaccine that is non-conventional, that could affect the market in the sense that um, people may either over or undervalue the pharmaceutical companies based on the degree to which they believe a vaccine conspiracy theory would be one example. Another
I
example might be um, that because the entire world is that the entire existence of the world is a simulation, real, or that you could invest more heavily in something like some technological component that you think is relevant to the simulation would be, but I think that it is a little bit of a reach to suggest that conspiracy theories have too much of an impact on the marketplace. But I
as
do believe.
as an I'm an efficient market theory guy, Dylan.
Hmm.
There is no such thing. There can be, you can convince me, my mother, my wife, my daughter, somebody, my son, that something may be that of some theory that you might have. Maybe somebody buys into it, but there's no way that an efficient market person would ever accept the fact that a conspiracy theory would do any more than a very short-term emotion, have any more than a very short-term emotional impact on the market that's not sustainable and that immediately corrects. I think the other side to that is that there are people that think that efficient market theory is a conspiracy.
Well, for
And
sure,
that,
that's true.
yeah, I mean, I think there are people that would say that if you believe in efficient markets, then you're a conspiracy theorist, but which I obviously think is beyond ridiculous. But any efficient market theory person would argue that as they relate to the markets will eventually be right in very short order. So anything other than something that's emotionally out of whack for a few seconds is completely irrelevant to, the market will
Yeah,
recognize.
I don't disagree with that. I don't disaee with that. But
Okay, all
I
right,
do
all right.
agree. I do agree with the idea that the efficient market theory could easily be considered a conspiracy theory. Um,
Yeah,
it,
sure.
the reason the efficient market theory is so appealing to some people is because it allows for a sort of sense. The reason people like conspiracy theories in general, let me try it this way, is because it allows for a certain sense of comfort with some set of facts that you don't feel entirely comfortable with, or that you don't want to accept for some reason. So the president, so the one person couldn't have shot Kennedy because the CIA or the mafia, some other story is more appealing, or whatever that it is. I don't feel comfortable with the floating on a rock in outer space, so I feel more comfortable imagining this is just a video game and somebody
Yeah,
put a shade
yeah,
over
of
the
course.
right. Like conspiracy theories are to create emotional comfort for people who are uncomfortable dealing with factual reality.
Yeah,
And
listen, conspiracy
much
theory is something you want to believe it. It's like
it's
that's
more emotionally
exactly what
pleasant.
you were thinking.
Yeah, yeah. And so efficient market theory is very attractive to people that want to believe that it's impossible to know anything about the stock market. But
Yeah,
that's because they don't know anything about the stock market. And so, because they don't know anything about the stock market, they want to believe that no one could possibly know anything about the stock market, because if they don't know anything about the stock market, no one could possibly know more than they know. And since they don't know, no one must know. And so, that's so you can see why the efficient market theory is such an appealing conspiracy theory.
So are conspiracy theories in general, are there more, well, I asked this before, but are they good or bad for are they good or bad? Like, in other words,
so I would say for engagement, to use a phrase of yours,
yeah,
conspiracy theories are very good, because
okay,
it's a great, because conspiracy theories by definition always represent a slightly more interesting, or sometimes significantly more interesting, version of an otherwise existing story.
sure,
So what, like, if there was an actual pandemic with an actual virus and there was an actual vaccine, okay, like that's it is what it is. But if the virus was manufactured by a US funded laboratory in China, and then the vaccine was created as a totally ineffective means to just acquire billions of dollars and force everybody to take shots, it's a better story. And so the conspiracy theory lives on the fact that the quality of the story tends to be better than the accepted reality on the one hand, but on the other hand, it's also not uncommon that that certainly another key to the conspiracy theory is that there are aspects of it that are true. Right, the best conspiracy theory is not a whole cloth fabrication, but rather pulls from some components of factual reality and then just fills in the gaps with the most interesting parts.
okay, I'm good with that. I'm just trying to figure out in you know in the world of finance, um do do our conspiracy theories something that that like, I feel like it's something that I embrace because they create opportunity, but it's something that also exposes um just like how little anybody really, like, I think it exposes us for how kind of sometimes how naive or how ignorant we are. And 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 I when I try to process the whole thing, in the end, I can't figure out if they're, you know, like, to me, this is, I'm babbling right now because I'm trying to decide if there's something in the end that is redeeming from listening to all this stuff. Is there some way to monetize this as an opportunist? Is there some way to monetize this stuff as a trader? The stuff that is so ridiculous. It's like I don't want to have to search through and determine whether what's real and what's not real. So is there some way to, the only way you can monetize any of this stuff is then to look at the real markets and compare it to what kind of is artificially being created, and then decide if there's an opportunity between, the pricing difference of those two. And essentially try to that's how I try to address conspiracy theories, other than completely, if they're political or if they're sports related. I mean, that's something different. I just completely write that off as just garbage entertainment, whatever it is. But in the financial markets, I try to decide if there's, this is so ridiculous, like that, how do I profit from it? An example would be, like a meme stock. Here's GameStop. It's trading for 300. You cannot justify that price. So if 300 you can't justify, then you for sure can't justify 400 or 500. But how do I profit from that? How do I monetize it? How do I strategize around that? And the same thing recently with, Reddit or GJT or something like that. What do I do with this particular stock? And how do I take advantage of what I know is short-term insanity.
And I think that the difference between the conspiracy theories of today and the conspiracy theories of the past is that the conspiracy theories of today are have more technical and technological resources to perpetuate them at a greater level. That information spreads faster, all those sorts of things. And so, if anything, the opportunity for greater distortions exists today than they have in the past. That would be, I would say, is the only distinction. But I understand
There's another argument to that, though, that you can go back to the whole Mars landing or moon landing, whatever it was back, that their inability to do fact checking back then, the inability to really know for sure the answer, created just so much more lingering uncertainty. Today I can write off a nutcase like, take an Alex Jones, for example, and a crazy conspiracy theory for somebody like him. I can write that off in 1 second, but maybe 50 years ago, I don't know if you could do that.
No, I think I think you're absolutely right. I think that it's a double-edged sword, that they can perpetuate faster than ever, and they can also be verified or invalidated faster than ever. I think both
they can be disqualified instantaneously.
Yeah, you can have instant disqualification, which is why you wonder with the ones that perpetuate. Do you think that means that the conspiracy theories that perpetuate, which I think the most obvious one is the Kennedy assassination,
yeah,
are more likely to have truth in them because of the inability to invalidate them? In other words, in the era of ease of invalidation, if you cannot invalidate it, does that not then suggest that it has merit?
I mean, that is, that's crazy interesting, right? But
right?
We've been through things recently as crazy as the whole, royal family in the UK, and the whole Kate, William, that whole insanity and all the conspiracies around that. And then just like, so it just doesn't live in politics or in financial worlds. It lives in, social worlds and family stuff and all this. It's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, should we just? I mean, how many conspiracy theories do you currently subscribe to, or can you name any that you do subscribe to?
Only one.
Okay.
The only conspiracy theory that I subscribe to, which I think I made up on my own, was that I do believe that the U.S. Airways plane that landed in the Hudson River was planned.
Really?
Yes.
That was planned by who for what purpose?
Planned by the pilot for the purpose of being a hero.
Really? So you think it was a personal, a self-aggrandizement of Sully?
Yes. Yes.
That Sully wanted to be a hero, and he's like, I'm going to put this thing down in the Hudson.
Yes.
And they'll make a movie about me.
Yes.
Okay. So Kennedy, you think you accept the boilerplate?
I accept it.
Single shooter.
I mean, I was 5 years old. Yes, I accept it.
9/11 inside job? No way.
9/11 inside job? Yeah. I mean, inside job? No.
Yeah. Do you believe there was that it was an inside job?
No. When you say inside job, I don't know what that means. You mean, I believe it was I don't believe that it was, I don't believe it was some genius plan. Let's put it that way. It might have been financed by some big terrorist organization, but I think there was just a bunch of, no name.
And then what about Anthony Fauci and all the COVID conspiracies?
No, of course I don't. I think Anthony Fauci is a national treasure, a hero. I don't ever think one thing bad about him.
And what about the vaccine in general? It's fine for you.
Of course. I mean, I'm alive, right?
Sure. And you don't think efficient market theory is a conspiracy?
I do not. I think efficient market theory is real. I think it's the only, if efficient market theory was a conspiracy, then then it would throw off, it would kind of destroy everything that I feel like I've worked for a long period of time. Like it would mess me up in the sense that if prices weren't real, that would mess me up.
At the same time, you also look for price extreme. Every price, by definition, of the fact that money is paid is real, right? As long as there's
of course, but I'm okay with emotion. I understand the craziness of emotion and how people and how markets and how everything can be very short-term emotional. But from a longer term, I think things normalize in today's world almost, basically instantaneously. And, I'm a pure arb person. If there is, like there is AI to me is not a shock at all because I'm somebody that believed that everything is going to be arbed out. All inefficiencies through technology, all inefficiencies are going to be arbed out. And that's essentially what AI is doing in a brilliant way. And I think that that's all part of the game going forward.
and do you believe that AI changes the marketplace? In other words, is there an inefficiency in if the market is already at 100% efficiency, then in theory, AI would not be relevant to it.
AI is not relevant to the stock market. AI is relevant to the learning process around the stock market and to all the inefficiencies outside of the stock market. The AI is irrelevant to stock price. Yes, I do believe that.
And that there's no enhancement of information or processing information that will create an edge in pricing.
That's correct.
And why do you think that?
Because we're already one tick wide, and we have multi-trillion-dollar marketplaces that are literally a tick wide. What is AI going to do? How is it
Theoretically,
possible to improve on that?
I mean, because it's not just about the spread; it's about the level. And if the level is reflecting imperfect information or partial information, that AI could theoretically provide a broader base of information to reset the level, even if it doesn't affect the spread.
But AI only knows what it's been taught, and the size of the pool of capital is bigger than AI, than all AI combined a million times over. So it's irrelevant to me. Like that's an irrelevant argument.
In other words, it will not change the value of a pharmaceutical company or.
Yeah. I mean, a conspiracy to me is the fact that people believe, I'll give you the ultimate conspiracy to me is that people believe that politicians have an advantage in the stock market. Like we've had this discussion before. But to me, that's like the ultimate conspiracy dump. Like it's insane.
Right, but again, this is a conversation that goes nowhere between the two of us because
no, I understand
from my
that.
perspective, it's so obvious that if I control policy, that
no, I know I'm not going to go down. I'm not going to go down
revenue.
that path. I'm not going down that path again because we've been down there. But to me, that's a ridiculous conspiracy theory.
But again, that's a classic example of the use of conspiracy theory as a way to dismiss something that's obviously true.
That's where we differ. That's the beautiful thing. That's what we call a two-sided market. That's what we call.
Well, I mean, but so here's the thing, because I feel like conspiracy theory is very like sort of like whatever. There's some phrase where like first they ignore you, then they laugh at you, then they join you, kind of a routine, And I feel like the use of the word conspiracy theory is a way to dismiss something that might be true that you don't want to deal with. Like it's a way to avoid a topic altogether.
Can you give me an example of something that might be true that you don't want to deal with?
The fact that the U.S. politicians have inside information and make policy to influence the direction of prices is something that is a topic that could be further analyzed, but you can avoid analyzing it by saying it's a conspiracy theory. They know nothing. Or you could look into the Kennedy assassination, or I mean, they can go to. The point is that the conspiracy theory is basically a way to stop inquiry. It's a way to diminish the seriousness of a topic, and marginalize it. And so I think that that's the sort of the risk of the word conspiracy theory is that it is used as a way to stop what would be otherwise valid inquiry.
Are conspiracy theories more dangerous today than they've been in the past?
Um, yes and no. Yes, but yes, because of the ability to make something appear to be true is the highest it has ever been, because of all the various video and audio and sort of, games that can be played by putting words in people's mouths and all the rest of this stuff. Um, so for sure they're more dangerous than ever. But again, the offset is the point that you made, which is that the ability to check and discount anything that's said is also at the highest it's ever been.
Yeah. Yeah.
What's
It's
your answer to
super.
that question?
I think that answer is good. I hate answers that if not this, then that, but
Mm-hmm.
it's probably a fair answer. I feel like conspiracy theories are more discussed today as conspiracy theories than they ever have been. Like I feel like the term conspiracy theory today is much more relevant as a topic as a topic of discussion than it ever was. I don't think we talked about conspiracy theories in the past and and debated their importance or relevancy, that kind of thing. I think in that's the only difference right now is that there we've exposed. I think it's I think there's a certain flaw. It's exposed some real flaws in different parts of our of our community, of our environment, and so that's the sad part. But maybe it was there all along, and we just didn't have to listen to everybody. Now we listen to everybody.
But so does that mean that you think the conspiracy theories that these topic of a conspiracy theory and the debate about what is a conspiracy theory is, let's just assume it's more prevalent now than it has been
Yeah, well,
because
it's wider.
yeah.
The reach is wider because everything is in play. Somebody with that had no vehicle before has a million vehicles today, and
Mm-hmm.
so that's the difference is that there's so many outlets and so many different verticals for you to talk conspiracy theory that before if you were a conspiracy theorist you had to stand on a soapbox in the middle of the square and scream and basically tell everybody about whatever your whatever your theory was or Jesus or whatever you wanted to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you don't have to stand on a soapbox in the middle of the square and you can push your um, you know, just push out your rhetoric to anybody,
Mm-hmm.
anywhere, through any platform. So
Mm-hmm.
your voice is is distributed and nobody knows if you're, you know,
And
there's
your qualifications to exert your voice are undifferentiated from expert to ignoramus and everybody in
sure.
between. Mm-hmm.
Sure. I listen to a lot of people that I probably, that I think if I knew them in real life, they would scare the living hell out of me. And yet I'll watch 30 seconds of their talking about something and I'm like, what is this person on? Like, but in the past I never would have heard that. So yeah, the answer is sure.
And
I
so,
mean,
yeah.
yeah.
So let me ask you this in a different way. Do you, or a different perspective, I guess, in raising your children, did you always tell them the complete truth about every situation at all times?
No.
And were there times when you just withheld information from them for a variety of motivations and reasons?
Yes.
Were there times where you actually explicitly deceived them for various motivations?
Yes.
And so, do you think that that's typical of most parents, if not all parents?
Yes. All parents.
All parents and so withhold information or they do not tell their children every single thing that is exactly true at all times.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I think that most all of us would probably consent to that as a self-evident truth.
Yeah. I mean, you have to, you're
Yeah,
testing, they test you, you test them.
sure.
That's how it works. When they're old enough to test you, you have to give it back to them. And there's
And
lots of different things that happen that, yeah, sure, of
so,
course.
so understanding that, what would lead you to believe that the government tells you the truth about things?
Um, well,
Does the
I
government? I
don't.
mean, I guess I would say, don't you think the government has an equal or even larger incentive than a parent to withhold information or um, publish distracting or deceitful information?
Well, they have a different set. The moral code is different, and they have to withhold is one thing because there could be strategic reasons that you don't understand or I don't understand. So reasons for withholding are fine, but there are no exceptions. Just like there's no exceptions in a criminal case for fraud, there's no exceptions for 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 dishonesty or being unethical or fraud or whatever, not telling the truth. So no, there are no exceptions for lying to us. There are exceptions for holding back.
But do you believe that the government does lie to us?
No, I don't believe the government lies to us intentionally.
So if I was to take you into the White House press room and you were to sit there across from the White House press secretary from either party,
Yeah.
you believe that all the words that are stated from the podium are true.
No, not from either party.
Isn't that the government communicating with the people? That is the spokesperson for the president speaking to the reporters from all of the or the many of the major news organizations in what in theory is an exchange of information.
Right. I mean, they have an obligation. That person has an obligation to disseminate what they believe is true. Do I think that that person implicitly lies? No.
Meaning that the people around that person withhold information from that person such that they have plausible deniability when they say something incorrect?
Possible.
Or is
I'm
that a
not being
conspiracy?
naive
Or is that
here.
a theory?
I'm not being naive. I just don't think that that is a big part. Like if there are, I don't think it's a big, I don't think that's the risk that we face. Like
Is
press
the is the
secretaries.
public is the government publishing deceptive information is not a
Exactly. I don't think that's the risk.
because I mean, and maybe we should have started this conversation here, but because I think regardless of our little idiosyncrasies and whatever I
Yeah.
believe, you believe, or anybody, I would say that the most sinister expression of a conspiracy theory is that the government, whether it's the U.S. government, the Chinese government, the Russian government, the Italian government, the British government, deliberately publishes deceptive information in order to manipulate the behavior of the population. Whether it's a Kennedy, like then
Yeah.
that
I
that's
don't
sort of the
think that's
root
the
of
case.
that's the foundation
Yeah.
of conspiracy theories at their most
Yeah.
sinister.
Yeah. I don't think that's the case. I mean, does it happen occasionally? Sure. But I don't think that's the case. Just like a general manager of a sports team, when they say, this person's hurt, he has an upper body injury. I don't know what that means. I don't think they're being completely honest with us, but I also don't think, I mean, there's something wrong. I don't know what it is.
And the reason that you believe the government tells the truth is founded in what?
I mean, I don't understand. I always felt that there was too great a risk for the government to lie. That doesn't mean I do believe that individual politicians are there are some levels of stupidity that we misinterpret for lying because they're just too stupid to understand. But I do believe there are some politicians that do lie that are kind of, there's nothing we can do. They're essentially, you know, they're basically sociopaths and there's nothing we can do. But I think generally speaking, I can't lump everybody into that category. So I do think there are some politicians that are too dumb to realize they're lying. There are some that are lying. But for the most part, when you look at the number of politicians, there are plenty that will skew the information, but they're smart enough to know and they're not lying.
And you would say that generally when there's a statement from the the leadership, whether it's in Congress or in the White House, that it is truthful.
Well, I'm not being naive. Okay, in our society, I would believe yes. If you asked me if that was the case in Russia or North Korea or China, I would say I don't necessarily believe them to be truthful. But we have the ability to vote out anybody, and so yeah. I mean, listen,
Because I think that's
if
the
we don't,
foundation of a conspiracy
if
theory,
we
right?
don't accept that, if we're willing to, if we can't accept the foundation of everything that our constitution is built on, then we're in a big trouble. Big trouble. It's the same thing with the markets. Like, why would I be involved in the markets if I can't accept? Like, do you accept that the stock market is fair? I mean, do you
Right.
accept
So
that
I
that
get,
listed
or that the price of oil is the price of oil.
exactly, or that what you're looking at the screen right in front of you, that what we're disseminating to you is fair, and that the fills you're going to get when you put an order in to hit the bid or take the offer is a fair price. If you don't believe that, then you have to get out of this business yesterday, and you have to never look at, basically, it's very difficult for you to move forward in the world of business. You have to believe. I come from a background where we did everything on the trading floor in open outcry. If we didn't for 1 second believe what every if we didn't believe everybody was real and would honor their word, then the whole system falls apart. All of finance basically crumbles. The whole derivatives world's over. And it will stay that way for 40, 50 years. Still that way today. It works. The people are genuinely good. Period.
I agree with that. I agree with that. I think that the government, I think, has more of an incentive to lie than the market, or maybe not less of, maybe the market as much as much of an incentive, but the market, because it's rooted in the principles of transparency and full disclosure, and the penalties for withholding information are much higher. I just think that the government is less reliable for information than the marketplace. And I don't know that you would even necessarily disagree with that, but that there are degrees of truth, and that the marketplace is one of the most truthful places on earth, because of the money being at stake, because of the transparency, because of the depth. And I think that the government tends to be both more able to and more incentivized to manipulate information than the marketplace.
That's fair. That's fair. I mean, it's fair, but I have to, again.
Okay. All right. All right. Last question. I know we're going to wrap this up, but do you
Yeah,
believe
we
in
got to wrap it up.
aliens?
What?
Aliens. Do you believe in them?
No, no.
UFOs. No aliens. Do you think this is the only
No.
life, even after watching that eclipse yesterday, you believe that this is the only place on the whole universe that has life that's watching the stars and the moon and all this jazz?
I think it's ridiculous to think that we are the only place in the whole universe that where there's some form of life, but I don't believe that there is alien life like you're thinking. I mean, are you talking about like
Meaning life may exist on other planets, but there's not life that transits between planets in an interstellar fashion. Is that what you're
that's
saying?
exactly correct.
So there could very
And
easily be life on other planets, but there's no life on other planets that's trafficking in the universe.
I don't believe there's life on other planets that's functional. Let's put it that way. And by functional, I mean functional like we are
Sentient.
functional.
Right. Yeah. I think we should we should conclude this, because I firmly disagree on the alien issue, but we'll save it for another day.
I'm surprised by little Dylan Radigan alien.
No, no.
I didn't.
Statistically, how could there be 8 bajillion million billion jillion billion planets, and this be the only one with sentient life? I'm surprised that you don't see the statistical. It's much more probable that there is life than there isn't life, based on the number of possible.
I accepted. I accepted the fact that there could be some form of, you know, some form of something.
Yeah, but you're
Growing
giving
some.
me like an amoeba. You're giving me like you're giving me mold or something like this.
Yeah, I'm giving you mold and amoebas. Yeah, exactly.
But
Exactly.
and I'm telling you, but once you've got mold, now it's a slippery slope.
The reason I feel that way is because I don't want. We have enough crazy people that are focused on things that are already Like, I just don't want there to be focus on things. I have enough trouble dealing with the royal family. Okay.
You don't want to add another variable of this
I don't
magnitude.
want to add a variable of they're coming in a spaceship to get you, to the all the crazies that currently exist in this world, because there's literally hundreds of millions of people that will believe that will end up start digging down and building bunkers and whatever else. And I don't want to have to spend whatever time I have left in this world having that discussion more than once ever.
I mean, you know that the U.S. military acknowledged the UFOs. It was in the cover of the New York Times, like in the middle of the pandemic. No one even cared.
No, I mean, it's obvious. I know what you're thinking, and I understand everybody. UFOs, the same thing. There's no such thing. It's just drones or vision, whatever. I'm so tired of the whole UFO argument.
All right. I disagree.
Conspiracy theory 101. It's 106. Um, please don't write me. I'm Tom Sosnoff. He's Dylan Radigan. This is Truth or Skepticism. We'll see you next week. Thanks, Dylan.
I thank you, Tom.